Alright guys, it's Chatterbox Reviews, coming at you guys with my review for the 100 Season 6 Episode 1. Alright, so we are finally back for the 100. So Season 5 ended, I think it was just about a year ago, maybe a little bit more than a year. Or at least it came back a year ago, right? I guess it ended a little bit later. But yeah, so we're finally back for Season 6, and this, of course, is a new chapter to the show, with the end of last season, kind of an insane ending to the season, right? Where we got kind of end of book 1 at the end of that one. So this is really a new chapter of the show, and you see that throughout the episode, really, with a lot of the callbacks and kind of paying homage to some earlier moments in the show from that first, book, if you will, or that first half of the show, or however you want to categorize it. So anyways, I thought this was a good premiere. A little bit disappointed with some of the things in here, but overall I thought it was really entertaining, really satisfying too. They gave us, I would say, just enough, but they didn't give us too much here. Obviously a great cliffhanger at the end of the episode as well. So of course, I'll give, a recap of the episode here, some of the most notable things that I, saw in the episode, then get to my rating, favorite character, and some more overall thoughts of this premiere, and kind of just share my thoughts on what we might see in the coming season here. Of course, they did release the trailer, which I thought was really well done, by the way. If you haven't checked that out, I really suggest it. Because it does give a little bit more detail about this new group and the new plan and everything. I think that kind of sets things up, of how we're going to progress here, in the rest of the season. So, anyways, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. What did you think of this premiere? What do you think of Season 6, kind of where they're going to go with this one? And, of course, there was, kind of a big death in this episode, too, a big cliffhanger, so let me know what you guys thought of it as well. So, if you enjoyed the review, please leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel. Would really appreciate it as well. Alright, so let's get into it without any further ado. Season 6 premiere episode. We're finally back for the 100. So, the new intro looks great. I just want to mention that off the top. And by the way, it has been a while, right? I haven't rewatched Season 5 or anything like that. And so this, I will say this, and I mean, I don't think this is a judgment on the episode itself, but the previously on segment was very short, rather concise, actually, in my opinion, and because of that, I forgot a lot of the stuff throughout this episode, and I've seen a ton of other people, commenting on that, on Twitter and all that stuff with these jokes and everything, but it's true. It's like, you almost have to rewatch the season to understand what is all going on in this episode, and I was definitely kind of out of the loop on some things. I did remember some things, though, a little bit better. So I will say the previously on was a little bit disappointing, but then we get to this intro, and the new intro, it's kind of a new art direction this season, a new design, right? They've done this with every season, I'd like to say, or almost every season, and I love this one. It was awesome. We got some more space stuff, and the colorful planets and all that stuff, so it looked really, really great. So anyways, now actually to the episode itself. So we resume back right where we left off, or almost right where we left off. We have a little bit of a time skip, so I'm assuming probably no more than a day, at least, right? No more than a day, with Monty's message playing to the group, right? So Clark and Bellamy, it was left off last episode or last season, where Clark and Bellamy were listening to Monty's message to them, or Monty and Harper's message to them. Of course, we know Monty and Harper departed the show now, because they die in that story. But now they've woken up, right? They've woken up the rest of the group, and now they're all kind of listening together to the message. So, or at least most of the group, right? Because we know Octavia doesn't get woken up, and a few others that we don't see in this episode, but they do kind of wake up the most notable characters, I guess, from the cryo. So, a new planet and a new future, right? Just a new chance, right? A brand new clean slate at something, and you get this kind of feeling from the characters that they're truly excited and just kind of happy for this, and also very thankful to Monty, who was able to do this for them, right? He wasn't able to see it, which makes it even more kind of sad and kind of, emotional. But still with him able to find this planet and get them there, is obviously an amazing feat. So then I like this line where Abby says, "Now we can get our humanity back." So I think this was a very good point considering the lengths they went to last season with the prisoners group. And again, we've seen this all throughout all the seasons and all these storylines that we've seen so far. But I would say the prisoners group, especially with Octavia, the Blood Reina and the bunker stuff, that is probably the farthest they've ever gone, cannibalism and that stuff, right? So to me, I really kind of buy into this line, and I think Abby has a really good point, and that is something that they should focus on, getting their humanity back on this new planet. And Clark says, I think throughout the episode, we got to do better on this one, right? It's a clean say, we got to do better. And again, kind of connecting back, she says, we got to do better for Monty. So then we see Bellamy and Clark decide on who will go down to the new planet. So we get Clark, Bellamy, Murphy, Echo, Shaw, Amari, Miller, and Jackson, who are the kind of the 100, right? The new 100 that are going down to the new planet, right? So they leave some of the others on the ship as they're not certain that the planet is habitable, right? Though they trust Monty on his word. So that's why they are kind of, somewhat confident in going down. But there is still a slight chance that they could all die, right when they touch down. Just very similar to the way that season 1 started with they went down to Earth. They weren't exactly sure, right, if they would actually survive or not. And so I thought that was really great, a concept, again, connecting back to season 1. And this whole sequence here was just real nostalgia, right? So as they land the ship down on the ground, the door opens, and we have that moment of nostalgia back to season 1, really establishing the end of book 1, kind of the start of book 2 concept they are working with here. As I mentioned off the top, kind of a whole new chapter of the show, so they're going to connect it back to the beginning of the first chapter. And again, I really like this. So they all walk off together, and then we get the line, I think it was Miller who says, is there anything better than, saying we are back, bitches, or whatever, right? Because that's what Octavia said in the pilot episode. Awesome line there. Really, one of my favorite lines probably of the episode. It was really awesome. So they all walk off together, find that the air is breathable and there is no radiation. So great news, right? And Clark says, thank you, Monty. So far, everything seems to be going good. Similar to the way season 1 started, where they had a lot of worries. They were kind of paranoid there'd be radiation, and it ended up being just fine. And this planet is habitable. So then we see Raven and Jordan, who is Monty's son, just if you, weren't aware, I was. The first time we saw him in the previously on, I was like, what? Like, am I watching the right show? And then I figured out, like, really quickly that was Monty's son, because he only had, 5 minutes of screen time at the very end of, the season 5 finale. But anyways, so Raven and Jordan discovered that planet Alpha, as they call it, is actually a moon to a bigger planet next to it or behind it. So I thought that was actually a really cool observation. Again, the effects in this episode were actually really well done, especially for a CW network show. I thought that I bought into it. I never had a moment where it didn't look realistic. I really enjoyed the effects that they used in this one, and that was just a really cool sight there as well. So once Clark and the others find the beach and the water source that they've been looking for ever since they get off the ship, they can see the planet right behind the moon that they're on, although they don't quite know that yet, and also the sun in the sky, and it actually appears to be red. Clark says it seems to be eclipsing, and of course this comes back a little bit later, but like I said, really great effects here too. I really bought into this, and it looks really great. So of course Murphy jumps head first into this new world, no pun intended, right, because he actually does. He dives into the water with Amari, and everything seems to be going just good. And of course Murphy was just, vintage Murphy in this episode. I know some people think, favorite character, right, of the series, and to me, I would say probably the most developed character, even maybe over Clark and Bellamy even. Maybe Octavia in the recent season, but Murphy's gone a long way throughout all of the show. So it's great to see him back there and doing Murphy things, right? So of course everything seems to be going good until the day turns to night, right? So they sit around the campfire, and Shaw voices his concerns with Clark and how she is going to handle this second chance, as he refers to it as. I love this line too, a little bickering between Murphy and Clark, where Clark says, "This is like your fifth chance, Murphy." So that was pretty awesome stuff, and it's probably over 5 at this point, right, with Murphy. So yeah, I just really like the dialogue throughout this scene as well. And then we see Jackson and Miller also having a nice little scene there as well. I forgot that they were together, actually. Completely forgot that from season 5, along with a ton of other things in this episode. But that was a nice little scene, kind of, Miller's still feeling the effects of what he did with Octavia Blood Reyna in that bunker. So that was really good too. And I feel like that's important because it was such a big thing in season 5. They can't really just, brush it under the rug. I feel like it definitely needs to be discussed going forward. So anyways, so a good question, right? How is Clark going to handle this second chance? Because she screwed it up with the prisoners on going back to Earth last season. Or I guess she was already there. But she screwed it up last season again after the Mountain Men, Mount Weather. The Grounders the first time, the City of Light, like every time she's kind of screwed things up, or at least it seems as that. And so I think it's a good question, right? How is she going to handle this? And that's kind of an ongoing theme throughout the episode. So quickly, they are sitting at this campfire and they get swarmed by these large bugs and are forced to make a run for the beacon, which is a few minutes away. And they kind of have to run through the forest here. They light some torches to keep the bugs away. Doesn't seem to be working all that well, but they are able to get there. So they get to this kind of wall, or I guess it's just a tower, right? They can't really see this wall, but it's there. And so as they get there, Shaw is kind of leading the way. And so he's telling them where the beacon is. Okay, it's this way. So he runs, right? He runs to this tower, but in the process gets kind of struck by this like force field, right? Or this invisible sphere, it looks like, kind of radiation, right? And so when it strikes him, it kind of looks like a lightning bolt striking him. And it's essentially, giving radiation to him, right? And basically killing him at that point. So really crazy stuff. And again, this is kind of set up to block those from entering, right? And it probably for a good reason. So again, these people, our group, right, are going into this and Shaw gets this kind of, gets in this force field and gets struck. But this wall was set up probably for a good reason, right? There's people there and they want to defend their kind of territory or their area. And so you get that impression right away. And it's a pretty serious defense too, if it's just going to let off radiation and kill someone almost instantly. And so what's kind of, what the stakes are here, right? So Clark goes to him right away since she is a Nightblood. And that's going to come back, I think, a lot. Came back in season 5 where, of course, the radiation doesn't affect her, right? Because she's a Nightblood, and so she's able to go in there and get it done. So she goes in, unlocks the code, letting the others run in, and then puts the sphere back up. So they're able to kind of get in there. Otherwise, though, not really able. They wouldn't even be able to penetrate that or even get past that without Clark. And so she's going to be important too, going forward, as she has been, of course, main character in the show. So the sphere goes back up, though they go to Shaw, and it looks like he's took too much radiation. His face just, really kind of, and this is some of the stuff that we saw in season 4, I don't know about season 5, but season 4 a lot, right, with this whole radiation storyline, and he dies. Shaw dies. So this was, kind of the big death this week, or in this episode. His last words are to tell Raven she deserves happiness. So he took too much radiation. He couldn't come back from it. They were going to give him, a shot or something like that, Jackson. But he said, no, save it, right? It's too late. So yeah, he dies. Shaw dies. So, damn, right? Gone too soon. He became a really likable character at the end of season 5 with him and Raven together. And already a death on the new planet, and he goes. So it does explain the scenes with him and Raven earlier, though, I will say, setting up his death. Those scenes really early on kind of fell out of place. You're like, oh, well, why are they focusing on Sean Raven so much, right? But it does make a lot of sense then later when he ends up dying here. So also further details here. This death was because the actor got a different role in another show. So, you hate to see it. You really do, especially as a fan of the 100. But, we do have to remember that these actors, he probably got a better role, and this wasn't a starring role for him, right? This was kind of a recurring, cast, kind of type of thing. And I think he's getting a lead role in another show. So, you know what? Good for him, but it is a little unfortunate. So he had to depart the show, but they decided to bring him back for the season 6 premiere and then kind of kill him off in that way. But I do think it was still a meaningful death nonetheless. So anyways, yeah, I did read that. So he did have to leave the show. But anyways, so the big death is Shaw for this one. So as they reach the beacon, then the group finds the people's or the population there, the people's castle and their village, possibly their whole settlement even, and really massive, right? Just breathtaking, really, the kind of visual of this place, right? Massive, organized, very elaborate too, with the colors and the whole kind of set of things here. Looks really, really great. So, obviously, they've been there for 200 plus years after all, right? So you'd figure that in 200 plus years, they would be able to build this type of thing, and this type of kind of settlement and kind of establish themselves like this in this area. So it does make sense, but it is really kind of breathtaking the first time they see it. So right off the bat, they go knocking door to door to see if anybody is there, or, they can talk to them or anything like that, and nobody is to be found, right? It feels like a ghost town right off the bat here, and they cannot find anybody. And so, of course, this raises some eyebrows, and Bellamy later says this place is just too developed to be, abandoned, or I think maybe Echo says that. So right away, they're kind of feeling a little bit suspicious about this. So before we get to the end of the episode here, just want to cover this stuff. So meanwhile, back of the ship, Marcus wakes up after Abby is able to use Monty's algae serum, I guess, that Monty leaves her before he died, I suppose. And Jordan gives it to her, right, at the very, very beginning of the episode to get him out of this coma, right? And so, of course, he's very badly injured, is Kane or Marcus at the end of last season. I believe it was the serial killer guy, right? The psychopathic guy at the end of last season, but I could totally be wrong. Again, I would have liked to see that in the previously on because I totally forget, but I think that is what it is. I forget the guy's name, but he was kind of a big part in that with Abby's storyline in season 5 there. So anyway, so Abby says, I thought I'd lost you. You've been dead for 125 years. And just reminding you of really how far we've come in this big time skip, right? We thought 6 years was a lot last season. Now we're skipping like 125 years, right? So as Kane gets up to see the new planet from his bed, Octavia enters. So Octavia enters after Nyla wakes her, of course. Also, I just want to quickly mention Maria Avgeropoulos, I believe is how you pronounce her name, was involved with some controversy outside of the show, and I'm not sure how that's going to affect her role in season 6. There was a lot of stuff about it, speaking about how she may not even have that big of a role this season. So we'll have to see if that actually ends up being true. You can look into it, of course. But I just thought, right when I saw her, because the very beginning of this episode, they didn't even wake her at all, right, in this episode, and we didn't see her at all until about, the 10 minutes left in the episode. So I really thought that we just might not see her in this episode at all, or maybe even the majority of this season. But it does look like she comes in here, so we'll have to see how that role or how her role ends up, being played in the rest of the season. Hopefully she doesn't have to be killed off or something like that. That would be very, very disappointing because she's such a great character. But anyways, we'll see. So, Octavia comes in and she just goes off on him, right, about being a traitor, selling them out in the battle to end last season, where she's kind of right. I mean, if you think back, Kane did kind of sell them out, and say that they, were going to surrender, and really was a traitor in that aspect to the group. So I think she has a point here, but this just kind of felt like a contrived scene here. The writing was not was not the best in this scene, and I've obviously, I understand that the writing isn't going to be, top notch or anything like that with this show, and that's never been necessarily one of its strong suits. But I just felt like this was kind of contrived. It just kind of came out of nowhere. All of a sudden, the first thing that Octavia does when she wakes up is go to Kane when he's very badly injured and says this stuff. So I don't know. But as we see, this causes him to get worked up. He begins coughing up blood. So Abby lays him down and his heart stops beating as he's bleeding out, not looking good at all. Octavia says his fight is over. So it's almost like she meant to kill him here. And again, it's like it kind of came out of nowhere, especially after the break between the seasons. Maybe then put this in the previous Leon that he traded. So to me, it just felt a little bit forced, but that's just me. Anyway, so it appears that Kane has died. Nyla even says to Abby that she should give up on it and give up on the CPR. But Abby comes up with the idea that she is going to put him in the cryosleep chamber, which keeps him alive for now. Barely, right? Barely alive. But he is still alive, but he's probably going to be back in this coma now. So Abby says they need more algae before they attempt another surgery to bring him out of the coma once again. So I'm really glad to see that they didn't kill him off that easy. And I was worried there that he did die, which would have been big. You have Shaw and Kane die in this episode. Would have been a little bit too much. But anyway, so I thought it was good. And so he's kind of in the cryo chamber now. He'll kind of, be there. He's going to sleep for a bit, and then we'll see if they are able to do a successful surgery on him again. So also Abby returns the pain pills to Raven, confirming that she has solved her problem from season 5. Thought that was a good one. There was some, kind of bantering between Raven and Abby throughout this episode. Some really mean things that Raven said to her. But again, if we think back to season 5, Abby was the one that put the collar on her and did all that stuff. So you do understand where that's coming from. So at the end of the episode here, as the group settles in at the castle, Murphy starts playing music, just being regular Murphy, right? So I love the way that they had Murphy in this episode, just vintage Murphy, if you will, even back to season 1. Like, he's always been like this, really great. So the group gets distracted for a few minutes, right, when they enjoy the village with nobody there, and the Murphy show, as Clark says, so that was really great. So, however, as Clark stumbles upon a book in one of the nearby houses, Bellamy, after she just discards it, her and Bellamy figure out the reason as to why nobody is there, and it is because of the red sun, or that's what it's called in this book. So this book says, where for 2 days it causes people to do terrible things. The book says heaven is hell during these 2 days where there's a red sun. And so due to this, everybody runs away and hides from the sun. And so really, really great here where we read this book and then just minutes later, everything unfolds. So then all of a sudden their ship goes into the air, gets airborne, and flies over top of them. So that was like, what, right? Kind of came out of nowhere there. But they flies over top of them, and Miller saying they stole our ship, right? And so of course we know the people ran away from the sunlight. So I assume that they kind of went to that forest area where the ship landed, and that's probably how they got there, right? And got on board the ship and have now stole it. So crazy stuff. But then the biggest part here is Amari tries attacking Murphy, right? With her knife out of nowhere, just trying to kill him, ruthlessly kill him here. Which of course makes no sense. So Clark figures that it's in the air because of the red sun, and that is why Amari tried attacking him, right? And then the book says, so few are safe once they are exposed. So damn, right? So it's interesting. So Amari, I wonder if maybe one of these exposed people to this sun, right? Or maybe it's just that all the people are dangerous once they're exposed to that sunlight. But anyways, so it turns out they came at probably the worst time to this new planet. And also, what's new, right? What's new? Who knew this new planet isn't what they thought it would be? And of course they encounter some difficulties here early on. So anyways, really great end to the episode here though. And we'll have to see how this red sun plays, and we'll see if more of the group actually acts like Amari in the coming episodes because of this condition. Alright, so in terms of a rating for this episode, I'm going to give this one a 4.6 out of 5. So to me, great callbacks to the pilot, but also season 5 throughout this episode, kind of wrapping up some notable loose ends, right? With the end of season 5, because the end of season 5, that finale episode, by the way, I love that finale episode. I know some people kind of had mixed feelings about that one, but I really loved it in the way that ended. It was obviously shocking, but I felt like it was really well done. Anyways, but I will say, of course, it was very abrupt, right? That finale and that ending came out of nowhere compared to all the other stuff in the episode. And the rest of season 5. So it was really abrupt, and there's a lot of things that were just kind of left hanging. And so in this episode, I felt like they did a good job of tying up those kind of loose ends, although there are many more still remaining, including Octavia and Bellamy, which is maybe one of the biggest ones. So, and that's going to be an interesting one to explore going forward. So, again, that's why I hope Octavia and Maria Avgeropoulos is able to have a big role in this season. But again, we'll have to see how that, how that progresses. But, it is what it is. So, also a great introduction to this new planet. I thought it could have been a little bit better because they spent a lot of time back on the ship with Raven, Abby, and a lot of that stuff. I felt like they could have spent more time on this new planet settlement, if you will. But again, I thought it was still pretty good, the stuff that we did see from the group, and a bunch of that nostalgia coming back. So yeah, I thought it was still pretty good. So some characters are missing in this one, though, and that was a problem for me. Maddie. Right? Where's Maddie? She was such a big character in season 5. At the end of season 5, such a big character. And we didn't see her at all in this one. And, and again, we only saw Octavia for about, 5 minutes, 4 minutes of screen time in this episode. But again, I guess we saw the main group, so that's what counts. With Bellamy, Clark, Murphy, Amari, Echo, right? All those guys, Miller, Jackson, if you want to include both of them. So, we did see, so I guess the main group, but there were some big characters. Also, the prisoner leader woman, I totally forget her name, I'm sorry, but she wasn't in this episode, and she played a big part, and she's also pregnant, so, what happened with that, right? And then Idra, I don't think she was in this episode either. So, and of course, there's probably many more. Also, I don't think we saw any of the prisoners. So I wonder if the story then is just that they didn't wake those people. Although Clark says to Abby that to take care of Maddie. But if she's still in cryo, right, and they didn't wake her, right? So anyways, there were some things in this episode where it just seemed like, why wouldn't you have these characters in this episode? But anyways, it is a premiere. There's 12 episodes left after this one. I'm sure we'll get lots of those characters in the long run, so it is what it is. Again, also nothing really new or unique about the way they set this one up. We've seen this before, and again, I feel like there's a little bit of a positive and negative to that, right? A positive in, okay, you get these nostalgic moments from season 1, getting off the ship, a new planet, they find a new, village or new settlement, of course, and everything goes wrong, right? So we get that nostalgia, but it's just lacking that uniqueness and that originality, and that's something that I think a lot of people have got kind of tired with in this show, is the same things over and over again. That's what I thought season 5 was a little bit better in, because a lot of that stuff in that season, at least to me, was kind of new to us, in a way, right? In the way they interacted with that prisoner group and how that all went. So I'm just kind of, and again, it's just the first episode. I'm not going to judge just on this episode, but I'm just saying the way they kind of set this up and the way it's looking doesn't seem to be new. It doesn't seem to be anything that we have never seen before. I wasn't blown away. And so, I guess I kind of had high expectations for this premiere too after a year, off, and I was really looking forward to it. So anyways, it is what it is. Love to hear your guys' thoughts as always. So favorite character for this one is going to be Clark, played by Elizabeth Taylor. Really great to see Elizabeth Taylor back, and also, the rest of the cast too. I've learned to love them, right? all of the cast pretty much. Of course, Bellamy and Clark are some of our, more originals. Maybe Murphy too, you want to include him. And it's really great to see them back. Liza Taylor, great job in this episode. And Clark, I really like the theme that they played with throughout this episode and her kind of redemption, right? And what is she going to do with this second chance? And she says, we got to do better for Monty in this episode. So I really like the way they're kind of progressing with her character. And hopefully we see a little bit of a different arc in this season for Clark, because it seemed like just kind of the same old every season and every interaction with a new group. But, maybe except for the City of Light, because that was kind of played through a little bit differently. But anyways, we'll have to see how that goes. But that'll just about do it for my review for the 100 Season 6 premiere. Again, love to hear your guys' thoughts on this episode and where you think Season 6 is going to go from here. All right, thank you so much for watching once again. Thank you so much for the support on the channel. Really do like to thank you guys. Really appreciate all the support, comments, likes, views, subscribers. Really do appreciate all of that. So please keep coming back for weekly reviews of the 100. I'll be doing reviews each week for the show. Really looking forward to the rest of the season. All right, guys. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next week for the 100 Season 6 Episode 2.
These things you keep, you better throw them away. You wanna turn your back